Digo, pues tú, claro, tienes que...
About now. Better? Well, good news is I remembered to turn my phone off. Now it's your turn to remember to turn off your phones, okay? I think we're just about ready.
One moment, please.
Yeah? Apparently I'm not ready. I could do the... Singing in the rain. No, are you really... My name is John Dyer. I'm from Serena. I'm involved in a few things, but one of the projects I'm involved in is to do with international connectivity. The Peace Project, you will hear about that a bit later on. What's the problem? Ah, right. Okay. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm sorry. This is an international session, and up until a few minutes ago, I think we had more connected sites around the world than we had people in the room, but maybe the balance is just about 50-50 now. Now, the facilities to transmit what's going on, in fact, have an interactive session with the rest of the world are being provided by the Global Project. And before we go into the formal session, I'd like to introduce Juan Camara. How do I do now? Paul, right. He's a professor at the Technical University of Madrid, technical manager of the Global Project, and he will give us a very brief 1-minute, 2-minute overview of the technology that's being used, and then we'll go into the session with our 3 very distinguished speakers from all over the planet. So, Juan.
Yes, I think so. Okay. So, thank you, Jan. I will be very brief. Well, I would like just to introduce to you very shortly the project, the global project, and the global session. The global project is a project for providing a real-time connection to events in Europe and all over the world also, if needed, to remote regions with special emphasis in Latin America, Africa, Middle East, Asia, and Pacific. So we have set up this session as a demonstration of what we do. So this session has over 20 sites connected from all over the world. We are connected mainly to the west because due to the time change, it's not possible to connect to the east at this time of the day. So we have mainly sites in Latin America and Europe and in Africa, one of the sites. It's late there. We have Malawi connected. And those sites are able to participate. They could make the remote presentations as well as participate in the questions or in the panels. And so we have organized a session such that 2 of the talks, the one by Florencio and the one by Tusu, will have a short complement from a remote speaker coming from his region, from Mexico, from Cudi in particular for Florencio, and from Malawi for Tusu. And we will also have then questions coming from the remote side. So you will see how this works. You will see it. This is a live demonstration. And at the end, we will have also a round with all the sites we have connected. We have connected all the sites you will see now here. We have depicted some of them in the map, but they will bring up just all the sites. Now we have 18 sites connected, but more will be coming as the event goes on, because this happens usually. This is like a live show where remote sites pop in and pop out as they wish for the part of the conference that they would like to attend. So that is everything from my side. Thank you. And, well, I give you the token again. Thank you. Oh.
Florencio, I'm not going to put this on. Yeah, hang on. I haven't got enough hands here.
Okay.
Right. Our first speaker is from Latin America. He's probably well known to quite a few of you here. Oh dear. Yeah. Let me get rid of this. Sorry about this, folks. Can you, do you have the presentation from the back? Or should I just download it from the server? Okay. Okay, so I'll introduce Florencio. I'm English, you know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And Florencio is going to talk about the Alice2 project and optical networking in Latin America. Sorry about your slides. So, Florencio. Would you like me to help you?
Don't worry. I think I can do that. That's it? Coming? Okay, let me just start and we'll catch up with the slides later. So, oops. Don't touch. So, thank you very much, John, for the invitation and for the introduction, and thank you to Juan for setting up all this session and all the global people and all the friends in Latin America and around the world. So thank you for being here also after this lunch and maybe coffee. So I'm going to talk about what we have been doing in Latin America in the last years and what we are planning to do in the coming 3 or 4 years. I will, they just pop up. So do I control them or you control them? The slides. Okay, I can do that. That's perfect. Great. So let me just talk to you about the recent task, the ALICE project. ALICE project means America Latina, which means Latin America, interconnected with Europe. It's a project that was launched in 2003 by the European Commission, jointly with a number of NRENs in Latin America. Actually, we were 12 initially. And it was a major investment by the European Commission and by the Latin American NRENs that were associated with the project. 12.5 million euros investment in 5 years. The results of the project mainly were these ones. There were many other outputs also. The creation of CLARA. CLARA means the Cooperación Latinoamericana de Redes Académicas, which I'm sure you understand is Latin American Cooperation of Research Networks or Advanced Research Networks. And, of course, the deployment of the Red CLARA network, which is maybe the most visible part of the work we have done in the last 5 years, but certainly the organization itself is also a very important issue. We have, in the process of this project, created 9 national research and education networks out of the possible 18 countries that were candidates to be connected. There were already existing 5 at the beginning, so we ended up with 14, out of which 12 ended up connected in our network. Actually, now we have 13. So, brand new. We have Costa Rica that had some difficulties during the process, but then came in and we're back with Costa Rica. We have a lot of engineers and technicians trained, and in the process also, we developed a lot of projects with the European Commission and with the partners in Europe and in Latin America. Over 9 million euros in funding for research projects were obtained also thanks to this initiative. So this is the result of the ALICE project that was managed by Dante, and that was, of course, on our side, managed by Clara and all of the NREN partners. So this was the end of this. This is what we have now, more or less. This is our network. Well, actually, those are just lines. So this is an STM4. Most of the lines here are STM1s and also DS3s, some of them. This is what we had at the end of 2008 and what we are funding now also until now with the European Commission funding. Plus the contribution of NSF and the IRNC project called LILA that also connects us to Miami with right now it's a 2.5 gig link shared with other projects. So this is what we have now. So what is it that we face as obstacles? Well, I guess that also in other regions of the world we still have very high pricing of telecommunication services. That is one of the key issues. Until now, the prices per megabit are 50 times from some countries to another. So in some places you can pay up to 50 times what you can pay in other places. So there is it's not very homogeneous. As it must happen in several other regions too. The prices also are a lot more expensive than in Europe or in between Europe and North America. So 10 times as an average. Individual differences can be larger, but as an average, you get 10 times more for the same capacity in Latin America than in Europe. Of course, in some places where we still have some monopolic or quasi-monopolic telecoms, the prices are, of course, very, very high. So that is one of the problems we are still facing and we are fighting to solve. And then we have also the problem of national policies. We have the lack of national policies in most countries, national policies regarding the science and technology, which is maybe even worse than just for the NREN. But of course, we also have a lack of policies in most of the countries, except 2. So the investment in science, for instance, as an average is 0.2% of the GDP. And the highest is 1.2 in Brazil. The average in Europe, I think, is 2.1 or so. So you can see that we're facing not only circumstantial difficulties, but also structural difficulties. So we have to fight against that. And to do that, we have negotiated and obtained from the European Commission a second round of the project, which we have called ALICE 2. It took us about 2 weeks of hard work to devise a name, ALICE 2. And that project is a 12 million euros budget provided by the European Commission, plus 6 million euros of co-funding. So as you can see, there is a larger co-funding. At the beginning, in ALICE, we had 2.5 million euros against 10 of the European Commission. Now we have 6 million euros against 12 of the European Commission. And the goal, of course, at the end of this project is that we have 100% by Clara partners of all the networks. The project lasts until August 2012, started in December 2008, and the emphasis is on these three issues. There are some other things that you're going to see, but the emphasis is, first of all, in getting an upgradable, long-lasting infrastructure, which means, as you have been maybe listening during the school conference, having access to dark fiber. Sustainability, of course, and that is going to be implied, one, by the organization and the structure of the different entrants, but also on the structure of the cost. And to do that, we need to have low-cost maintenance network, which implies that we need to have access to infrastructure. Otherwise, we will be always dependent on lease lines, and that is impossible to afford. We are committed to foster the development of applications that especially aim at promoting the solution of MDG, or attaining the MDG goals, and inclusion, which means two things. Yes, please. MDG, Millennium Development Goals, the UN MDG. Inclusion means not only connect all the countries which are not connected yet, which are five in Latin America, but also try to reach to the universities which are not connected, which means create synergies so that the entrants get better and cover more universities and better fees. So these are the partners, EVALIS 2. These are the actual partners who actually signed the contract. You can see that Bolivia also signed the contract, but is not connected yet. We have also, as potential partners, Cuba, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Paraguay. By the way, we are going to have our next ANIS2 meeting in Honduras, so we're trying to convince them by just going there in mass. We're all going to be there and trying to convince them that this is the right way to go. And of course, as always, we have our European friends: Spain, France, Italy, Portugal, and Denmark. So this is the set of ALIS2 partners, the same as the ALIS partners in principle. And as I said, our first goal is to obtain a cutting-edge infrastructure, which is quite complicated because most of the telcos, and you may have heard that in the past in Europe, do not sell fiber. Thanks to God, there are some new partners, or there are some others who are not necessarily telcos, or maybe even in the times we are right now, there is a chance that some telcos needing some cash are willing to sell some of their infrastructure to these academics. So we're working on that, and I have some good news. So the idea is, in principle, to get terrestrial fiber covering all of the countries in South, Central, and North America. North America meaning, in this case, Mexico. Which is North America, by the way. And, of course, Cuba. So we hope to have, Cuba is not going to be terrestrial, it's going to be submarine, hopefully. We hope not to have the need to go by satellite, which is the only solution right now. And of course, some of these links connecting us to Europe, to Central America, and also, of course, as a goal of Clara, and not only of the ALIS2 project, also connect to North America, and we're working also with our U.S. friends in the next version of the IRC call. So to do that, we are not only going to use the money of the European Commission, we are also having extra contributions. For instance, this is a very large contribution which is going to be made, or is being made, as we speak, by the CINEP. CINEP is a funding agency from Brazil. So this CINEP is providing us with 10 million euros extra, separated from our contribution and separated from the European Commission, to ideally light fiber or buy fiber between Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina, the Mercosur countries. So the big advantage of this is that we are not going to use Alisto money in buying fiber in these parts. So we're going to concentrate that money in all the other parts. So we are expecting also some additional funding, especially from Argentina and Uruguay, maybe for these pieces inside their countries. So this is going to be a project where we're going to put together a lot more resources than the ones we have obtained from the European Commission. And another project that is synergistic with this one is one that is being deployed right now, is called OJ, the OJ Access project, where we have joined forces with InnovaRed, the Argentina network, with the OJ project, the Access project, with a private company called Silicon Networks, and of course with us in the CINEP project from Brazil, to have a fiber that is more or less the aspect of the actual task between Buenos Aires and Santiago, to connect in their way this point, which is the OJ Observatory, which is the Cosmic Ray Observatory, located 400 kilometers south of Mendoza, which is across the border with Santiago, with Chile on the other side. So this is going to be providing us with several 10 gig landas, the first 10 gig landas inside Latin America, owned by an academic network. And this is going to be available in 2 months. But we also need to foster the usage. And to do that, we are committed to develop a set of user communities in different areas, especially, of course, those focused on solving the Millennium Development Goals. But, of course, also in fostering the cooperation in the high level, FP7 projects and other EU and other agencies funded projects. So this is something that we are starting to do in different areas. We have already groups working in medicine, in digital repositories, in digital libraries. We have things which are starting. We have some groups which are already consolidating, as the telemedicine group has been led by Luis Messina from several years now, and we are incorporating other groups. So one of our commitments is to develop those groups, to develop tools for those groups, activities, training, and other things. So we want to identify different research communities, and I have a picture there with several possible areas. You have biodiversity, you have volcanoes, of course you have astronomy, of course you have food, biotechnology, and several areas that could be of interest to Latin America. So this is very important. We have to identify those communities, and we have to help them to do their joint work in favor of Latin America. So these are the initiatives we are going to provide for the communities. A database available funding, that is something that we have developed with the help of another project, which is already almost done, which means that we are going to be providing to the researchers with a database of different sources of funding around the world, so that they can eventually submit a proposal. That is something that the researchers in Latin America said there is no way we can find that. We have to enter into every agency and look for different things. So we're going to be doing the work of collecting the information and putting that on a website. A database of collaboration project that is going to be enhanced. A set of tools. So to do that, actually, we are going to be taking an approach, a marketing approach, so that we're going to be doing focus groups with the users, so that they tell us what they need to do their work much better. And we're going to do training for those communities. Of course, we have to develop a sustainability model. I already told you that depends on the cost structure. Of course, we're going to be fighting for the cost structure, but also to strengthen the organizational structure of Clara and of the MREN. That is part of the project. We want to include everybody. As I said some time ago, from cumbia, salsa to tango. We want all to be there. And, of course, we need people. We need more well-trained people, so we're going to be training many people, technicians, of course, but also managers. We want better managed MREN, better managed Clara, of course. And, of course, we want also users, community leaders, which are aware and are skilled to use that we can provide. And before we end, I'm going to give a few minutes to our president. Our president is over there in Mexico City, Carlos Casasus, where it's about 10:30 in the morning or something like that. My dear Carlos, could you comment on my presentation, please?
Hello. It's a pleasure to say hello to all of you from here. We think that Clara is on the verge of moving to a new stage of development. We're very enthusiastic about the possibilities of finally including all the potential country entrants to our network. We will be working with Honduras very soon, in a couple of weeks, to try to incorporate their National Research and Education Network and to have them connected to Clara. We have also been working with Cuba, with Bolivia, as Florencio mentioned, and we are planning to have a new configuration of our network coming on stream very soon in the next few months, and this will certainly enable a bigger dimension of projects and better collaboration within the Latin American region and with Europe. It's a pleasure to be here, and I congratulate you all on the meeting.
So, thank you very much, Carlos. So, questions? Are there any questions or preguntas from Latin America? Comments? Steve, please wait for the micro. There it is.
One question I noticed in the maps, in the top, like Guyana and Suriname, is there any discussion or interest in having them join and be connected?
Actually, with the ALIS-2 funding, that is not possible. That is not part of the scope of that funding. But certainly in Clara, we are willing to help everybody which is in the neighborhood to connect. So we hope to work with the Caribbean too. As their network develops, we hope to be connecting them. Or if they don't develop a network, we are willing to connect them, and Suriname and Belize and other countries which are in the neighborhood are most welcome to work. Of course, they cannot be subsidized by the European Commission, but we can make them partners if they wish to. Luis?
I just want to thank the collaboration of all the members from Clara to have helped us by connecting all the institutions that at that time had interest to participate in a telehealth proposal for the Inter-American Development Bank, and we approved the project, and we are about to start in telehealth.
Wow. Thanks to you for the initiative. That is a very nice initiative. There's another question there.
If I understand correctly, connectivity bandwidth varies from country to country. What is the maximum connectivity bandwidth and what is the minimum?
Correct. Right now, the minimum connectivity is 45 meg. Right now. Once we finish the project, our aim is to have at least 2.5 gig in each one of the links, the minimum.
Do we have any other questions? Time for one more question. This is your last chance.
Maybe from Latin America? ¿Alguien de América Latina? They should be awake. It's early in the morning. Okay.
Maybe they haven't had their coffee yet.
I don't even have a coffee. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks again to Florencio.
Oh, there's a question. Oh, there it is.
Madrid, right. Sorry.
I forgot that it's Spain.
You're awake.
They're awake.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Okay, my name is Gabriel Huecas from the Polytechnical University of Madrid. And I have a question about the immediate future of Clara, about the expansion to remote sites. I mean, several countries in South America, Brazil and Argentina, are really big. So maybe having just one point to access to the Clara network could be not enough for remote sites. So do you have any plan for taking account these kind of geographical issues? Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're completely right. I mean, the distances, the coverage that we need to have in the countries in Latin America is very large. I mean, thanks God, maybe it's not thanks God, that we are not necessarily covering all of our territories. So in some cases, it's quite easy to cover 80 or 90% of the possible population by just a couple of backbones. For instance, the project we are doing with Argentina, the Justo goes around essentially 4 or 5 cities, from Buenos Aires to Rosario, Córdoba, Mendoza, and then Santiago. 4 cities is 80% of the population of Argentina. Actually, that project is doing what we want to do in all of Latin America, which is leverage on the synergies between 2 different projects, which is one is the NovaRed project in Argentina, I mean their National Research and Education Network, and the Red Clara network, because when linking Buenos Aires to Santiago, we pass through all those 4 cities. So we're not only building one lambda for Red Clara, but we're also building one lambda for NovaRed. So we're helping them to build their own network. So we're putting 2 needs together. Besides that, the investment of the Argentinian government is covering the south. So they are actually going to finish a ring with finishing in the south of Chile, and there are agreements on the way to close that ring and have a full ring covering part of Chile and part of Argentina. And that will take into account most of the scientific research centers in Argentina, and of course the rest is the job of the Argentinians themselves. We plan to do that also in Central America and across Peru and across Ecuador, because the idea of having terrestrial lands is that when crossing the countries, you cross through a lot of interesting and important cities. Of course, we cannot with that cover all the country, but it certainly helps.
Okay. Can we thank Florencio once again for an excellent... Congratulations on your big success story. And now I will invite the next success story to the floor. I'd like to introduce Tusu Tusubira. He's the Chief Executive of the Ubuntu Net Alliance. The Alliance is a consortium of, well, I'm sure you will tell us what the Ubuntu Net Alliance is.
If I can get my presentation, I definitely will.
Yeah, we can do this. We know how to do it now.
Okay. Congratulations. Progress.
Yeah. We learned something this afternoon. Okay. So, here's the microphone. Comfortable?
I feel like a radio operator, but that's fine.
Yeah, very good. You look like one.
Thanks a lot, John, for the introduction. Now, really, Ubuntu Net Alliance is easily the most exciting thing happening around the world right now because we live in a world of challenges, and to us, challenges make life very exciting. You can be in the same forum and somebody is arguing about moving on to IPv6. Another person will be talking about what is IP addressing. And another will be saying what is the importance of NRENs. In other words, we have got multiple challenges, but these challenges give us opportunity. Now you talked about the cost of internet in South America. Actually, at the University of La Paz about 2 months ago, and they were complaining about the cost of internet. They were saying we are paying $180 per megabit per month, per megabit per second, and said we wish we had that in Africa, because it's about 10 times that and sometimes more. And the fact is, the challenge in Africa at the moment is not lack of money, it's the cost of bandwidth. Because the amount of money being spent by 10 countries is about $1.4 million per month for 700 megabits per second. I know that in Europe, in the US, that would be at least 70 gigabits per second. In other words, if you had the right environment and right connectivity, would be as connected as the rest of the world. And to us, that's the headline. And therefore, we believe that part of the challenge has been for a long time the exclusion of African researchers. We talk about the brain drain, and this is because the environment is no longer conducive. Nowadays, researchers demand high bandwidth. They demand high connectivity. They demand instant presence everywhere in the world. They demand the ability to work around the clock, and nowadays that requires connectivity. And this is the excitement we have that we have got a chance to make a difference here, because the challenge is so big. Under Ubuntu Net Alliance, we have coined the name CORENA, which is Consolidating Research and Education Networking in Africa, so that we can create the kind of environment we are talking about, where people have got sufficient connectivity, they can be part of the global research community, they can contribute to national development, they can generate intellectual property, they can participate in international collaborations. This is not the purpose of an NREN, but it's like in a community where there is starvation, the first thing you must provide is food. When they've got enough food, they then start worrying about education and the health and development and all that. But you must get the basic need out of the way first. And for any researcher, any university, the basic need is connectivity. Until that is addressed, we shall not be able to move to the stage of what an NREN is supposed to be. And therefore, that remains our principal focus now. Can we, in the next 2 to 5 years, ensure that we have got the same connectivity in Africa, and we are talking about gigabit capacity, at the same price as the rest of the world, and then we shall be talking about real equity. Now, the key things which triggered the formation of the alliance, like I said, was really connectivity. Around about 10 years ago, research started around Africa about existing fiber capacity, and was staggering to discover the quantity of unused fiber in Africa, owned by power companies, owned by railway companies, but because of the policy environment, they could not utilize this capacity. And then liberalization started. We started liberalizing the sector around about the mid-90s. I was part of that first wave of liberalization as a regulator at that point in time. And again, permitting players to come in, and we talked about the challenge of policy and regulation in South America. It is exactly the same, because this for a long time has kept out competition, has kept out investment. Now, as this opens up, this is multiplying. It's actually amazing that right now, in the middle of the financial crisis, the global financial crisis, you find that around the African continent, we are getting financial closure on major fiber investments, which is saying that really this is the new frontier. And anyone who wants to be part of the next world needs to be involved with the African continent, I can assure you. And then there was the plan for the EASY. This was the first cable plan for Eastern Africa about 4 years ago. And this created excitement, and we said, why don't we get together so that we can exploit this first opportunity? We have never had fiber before. I must acknowledge my friend Bjorn, sitting in the audience here, our man in Europe. He was part of this, has always been part of us, and recognize him for this. He's a colleague and a friend of the African Indians, and thank you, Bjorn, for that. So we came together. Initially just a few countries, but it has grown rapidly. Now really, to be honest, this is a growth in intent, not yet a growth in networking, but a growth in a form organization that is committed to ensuring that we can first meet the basic objective of sufficient connectivity and then move the universities on to the next level, exploiting the full benefit of an NREN and a regional research and education network. Now, I've got another slide which puts this in perspective. It's quite interesting. You meet a friend, say, here in Malaga, I say, oh yes, I come from Uganda. I say, oh yes, I've got a friend in Cape Town. Might you know them? Because people tend to think of Africa as a single point. This is quite true. It happens all the time. And yet Africa, if you look at the coverage we are looking at for UbuntuNet, we are talking about a membership region that covers the entire China and all of Europe and part of India. So I can boast that in 5 years, we are going to have the largest regional research and education network. None of you is going to have that. You just don't have geographic coverage. So that's how big we are. So when I say come to Africa, please, we mean business. This is it. It's quite so that is the intent. But in reality, we don't have any country. I'm not talking about sub-Saharan Africa, but I discovered recently that in Northern Africa, it's not that advanced. We don't have any country that can say that they've got a modern research and education network. South Africa is easily the most advanced, but even those cannot compare with any country in Europe. And most of the countries, as you can see, are somewhere simply trying to set up the organizational level. Can we get together as universities so that we do something about this? Now, the challenge actually goes further than that because many of the universities, the campus networks are just being set up. But like I said, all this is just excitement happening in the continent and gives everybody a lot of opportunity. There is a growing awareness of the importance of research and education networking, and especially investment in higher education. I don't know if I've got anybody here from the World Bank, but for about 10 years, the World Bank and IMF were telling African countries and insisting as a condition that we should not invest in higher education. It was quite ridiculous, of course, and we tried to fight it, but these are some of the funniest things to get around the world. But now the World Bank has woken up at last, as they normally do, to realize that without higher education, you cannot have progress. And many governments are now beginning to invest heavily in higher education. They're talking about universal loan for the first time. They're talking about expanding education. I've already talked about the liberalization of the telecom sector. Nowadays, in many of the countries, like my country, Uganda, you can come in tomorrow and invest in any telecom sector you want, any operation you need, so long as you have got the money. So the restrictions are disappearing, and that is really good. Again, because of the awareness that the digital world is moving ahead, many countries are now investing in national fiber. Literally, all the countries in Eastern and Southern Africa, and that is from Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Sudan, Tanzania, Rwanda, DRC, Zambia, all the way down, are investing in national fiber backbones. Our benefit as NREN is that as part of this investment, we are recognized as the key area of benefit. And therefore, in many of these countries, provided the negotiations are handled right, they are going to have access to that fiber. Some of them already got actually fiber pairs. Never mind that they don't know what to do with it, but this is available and on the already laid out for them. Research linkages. There's a lot of collaboration between universities in Africa and Europe, Africa and the USA, Africa and the Far East, and within Africa itself. Now here you get two demands, because if somebody is sitting somewhere in maybe University of Washington, They are used to multi-gigabit capacity as part of facilitation. And they are collaborating with a center of expertise here in Uganda. AIDS research is very advanced in Uganda, for example. That kind of collaboration demands that they must focus on sufficiency of connectivity. And this has been a big drive for us because it is creating awareness around the world that, look here, connectivity is not sufficient. I remember beyond when we started the collaboration with Sweden, Makerere University of Karolinska, yes. Somebody was complaining very bitterly, what is happening in Makerere? How can they first respond? Until the gentleman came and visited Makerere. And he sat looking at his email going and went and made a cup of tea, and he came back and it was still going, and he realized that is connectivity. So this awareness is helping us to urge governments to invest. I believe the EU willingness to invest in Africa in terms of ICT infrastructure is not simply because of that. It's because of the research collaboration that is happening between the universities. And this has been very important. Now, the issue of pioneers cannot be underemphasized. You know, many of us who have started the Ubuntu Alliance started out in those days. I don't know, some of you might remember when you have the geosynchronous satellites, north-south orbiting satellites. So that you get about 30 minutes every day to upload your email and download your email. Some of you might remember those days. Some universities are still operating like that in Africa, by the way. And then moving on to the basic dial-up. Many of us who started Ubuntu have been part of that genesis. And therefore, we don't feel that anything is impossible. We are used to fighting impossible odds. And therefore, the bigger the odds, I think the more we fight and we can win this. And this committed core people is very important because they remain standing in terms of political challenge, in terms of resistance. They break down the barriers so that then the engineers can come in and start building the networks. And this one of our key resources at the moment. Now, for the first time, like I was saying a short while ago, it is incredible the quantity of fiber coming to Africa now. The West African cable system works has just closed on financing about 2 months ago, actually. And the sugar operation of that has changed no longer to 211. But this is about, is it 1.4 terabits or something like that is coming in. Easy has closed and they'll come in operation next year. CCOM, that is now purely provided. It's not an operator cable. It is an investment cable, and then anybody can get capacity. It has started landing in multiple locations. It will be operational in July, August this year. And therefore, international connectivity is going to be solved within the next 24 months for almost the whole of Africa. The challenge, of course, does not stop there. At the same time, there is working on the backhauls because we must get from the coast into the hinterland. And that is the East African backhaul system. Now, this is not simply a plan. These are cables being laid by private sector companies, and it is going to be reinforced by the national fibers, which are now beginning to run in all these countries. So there is going to be capacity. Again, looking at part of our region, this is now Northern Africa, because Sudan is part of our membership, Ethiopia is coming on board, Somalia is also coming on board. So that's now the Northern Africa backhaul system. And you can see it crosses into Central Africa, to link our friends in Western and Central Africa. And then again, Southern Africa. These are ongoing constructions. And this is why we say that give it about 24 months and the capacity will be in the ground. Whether or not we can exploit it is another challenge, but that we're working on, and we believe we shall. I've been talking to many of you that one of our biggest challenges is the shortage of skilled human resource. This is a challenge actually generally around the world, but on our continent it's quite acute. I don't know who I was sharing with just before we met that I could probably identify within Sub-Saharan Africa on my single hand, actually not even my hand, the people, the individuals that can say that yes, these are cutting-edge experts in terms of setting up modern data communication infrastructure. There are many of them in the private sector, and hopefully through collaboration we shall maybe tap into their resources. But as the research and education networking community, we are still very short of that. So I know we lack fiber, but one of the areas of support we really need is that kind of focused capacity building that will create the engineers that can deliver the kind of networks we have in Europe. Actually, not what we have in Europe. We need something better than Europe so that we can be a step ahead. Policy and regulation needs to be addressed. But this we are working on again. We have studied the environment around Africa. We have got a compilation about each country. And we have got points of intervention, which we hope are going to make a difference in terms of what happens. I talked about the lack of awareness of what an NREN is. This is a big challenge, but it's not really a challenge because we said that once we meet the basic need of bandwidth and connectivity, we shall then move on to the next level. But we're not waiting until then. We're already talking about the stimulation of content networks. As the Alliance, our first special interest group was actually grid computing. That was set up a year ago. We have got the librarians coming on board. We have been talking to the agriculture people because they had a forum in Uganda recently. I was with a forum of the medical institutions, collaboration between Africa and America in Nairobi recently. So yes, they are not quite aware of the roles yet, but we are bringing content on board right from day one. One of the challenges we find, I don't know if you saw this in Europe in the pioneer days, is that many NRENs want to take individual advantage at the outset. They don't quite appreciate the benefit of working as a group. We have found this a real challenge because quite often an initiative can be scuppered because an NREN will say that I'm going to try this first. Now this is a human engineering challenge, and again we have to work on that. But one of the current stumbling blocks. This goes along with the next statement because service providers will target the bigger institutions because if they take out the bigger institutions, they then weaken the NREN, and if the NREN is weak, then it takes longer to develop. And this is another challenge we face. We talked about the weak financial base, but I believe this is mainly because of the high cost of bandwidth. Because $1.3 million per month in our region should be sufficient, provide sufficient connectivity and sustain operations. So the money is being spent, but it's being spent on an extremely expensive commodity. We have set out a lot of strategic priorities. I'll not go through them. You can see them on the net because they've been posted. So that we set direction for the Alliance over the next 5 years. This defines our program starting January 2009 to the end of 2013. Now we are lucky that we have got friends coming in to support us, and definitely the European Union is one of them. We have been talking to them. So their Africa Connect project, they should enable a lot of regional connectivity. And this reinforcement of the regional connectivity. Internet too, we have been talking to for a long time in terms of building capacity, in terms of creating back linkages from the USA to Africa. The Network Startup Resource Center in Oregon, we have been dealing with them for quite a long time. So we need as many friends as we can. We are not exclusive about who we deal with. Again, I'll share with somebody that I've got so many countries and so many levels of need that anybody can find a niche in there so that yes, this is going to be my area of support, or rather an area of collaboration. Now, this does not mean that we are not doing anything. For example, in terms of addressing the size of the continent, we have developed our infrastructure vision, as shown in that slide, which looks at 2 development clusters, so that based on a common architecture, each of them can evolve independently. Because of the huge size, it will be inconceivable to think of developing a network that covers the entire region at once. So this is going to develop in segments. Some of them are in place, some of them are just planned, some of them are under construction. We don't own the main fiber, but we own capacity on an increasing number of fibers within the continent. A lot of it little capacity, a lot of it promised capacity. But we believe in about 2 years also to be consolidated capacity carrying the regional traffic to the different countries. Each of those points of presence is a country, a different country in Africa. We're also addressing the building of NRENs and people understanding. We try to engage universities in different countries so that we can get them together first formally to establish a form organization, so that we can point out the need of having good campus networks and then moving on to the good national networks and then moving on to the good regional networks. So that is a continuing area of engagement, and we're working with several partners in order to achieve that. Expertise is a big challenge, like I said, and at the moment we're talking about sharing expertise. Even now, I could pick up a phone and call a colleague in South Africa and say, Rwanda has got a need. Can you go there for a week? And they will go there. And many of them have done this. This might be something like IP renumbering in the network. It might be about organizing the NN and lobbying government. It might be about designing the national network. But the availability of colleagues willing to do this is very important. And when we come to a bigger forum like this, it expands that forum of friends, so that if we call somebody and say, can you please and work here, actually have a holiday, because we have this kind of weather in Africa all the time. Come and have a holiday in Africa as we assist a network to do something. We are creating an engineering task team. Of course, the challenge is getting the right people. We believe I've now got some of the right people, and then developing their expertise to a cutting edge. Capacity building is a big challenge, and while we are going to have these interventions, we believe that one of the challenges is that within our universities, the curriculum is not producing the right kind of graduates. And that's because they are not informed about what the industry needs. It's not really their fault. So you can get 1,000 graduates in engineering, but when you put them on the job, they are not quite matched to the needs of what you are trying to do. So we're trying to address that by advising universities in terms of what they need to incorporate in their curriculum and what kind of training approaches they need to use. I will talk about limited funding, so we shall not go into that again. And I've also talked about policy and regulation. The isolation of Africa. I keep on saying this. For example, I know I've got friends from the EU in this room, but they are looking at bringing connectivity to Mombasa as supporting Ubuntu Alliance. Why don't we look at bringing connectivity to Mombasa as supporting Giant or supporting Dante? I don't know if our colleagues from Internet who are here. I said, why do you want Africa to come to Washington? Why can't Washington come to maybe Lagos so that we meet there? It's a very sensible suggestion. That's why I've got a little bit more money. So, meet the cost of coming and exploring the new environment. So actually, this is quite serious. For quite a long time, we have been meeting because of the entire circuit in terms of getting to Europe. It should be the other way around. John, I believe this is eminently sensible, that you should meet the cost of coming to Mombasa, and then we take it from there. This change in attitude means that it is much easier to spend public funds, because we are not talking about using European money to run a link for Africa to Europe. We are talking about using European money to run a link for Europe to Africa. Totally different perspective, and I believe the commissioners in Brussels would understand that much better. Just a suggestion. Now, we are actually an operational network, so talking about the planning and the challenges does not mean that we are not operating. With the support of friends, we have actually got a router in London, which was donated by Cisco, a fairly big router. That is our international point of presence. It has been connected to Giant, and we thank Dante and Giant and the EC for that. We peer with the commercial internet providers in Europe. We have got Tenet, South Africa, connected by fiber, and we have got Kenet, Kenya, tunneling through the VSAT commercial cloud and getting the same location. That was actually a proof of concept that even without fiber, those endings that are still forced to work via satellite can be part of the international research and education community. So yes, we do have an operational network covering. And that kind of expands it so that you see more precisely what is happening in the different places. The peering the commercial cloud, the connection to Giant, and then the arrangements in both Southern Africa and the connection for Kenneth. Part of this is planned, the dotted lines are still planned because they are not quite in place, but that is the operational network. We must thank our friends. I've had many friends, I not cite all of them, but without their support, we would not have achieved what I've achieved so far. We know there's still a lot to do, but that's not a daunting task because it is a task we are determined to achieve. And I leave with the words of our elder statesman, Nelson Mandela. I think you can see them for yourselves. They urge us as Africans to deal with our challenges, not to give up. There are many, but we believe there are opportunities for growth. It's a new era of excitement in Africa, knowing that the problems are not insurmountable, and that we have got determination and willingness to surmount them. Thank you very much.
could see some people clapping in Malawi here.
Maybe Margaret might want something to add.
Margaret, would you like to say something?
Thank you, John. Thank you. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Fine.
You can hear, yeah. We have two brief presentations here in Malawi. Malawi, the UbuntuNet Alliance Secretariat, but also in Malawi we operate within the framework of MAREN, the Malawi Research and Education Network. So we have two brief presentations supporting what Suzu's been saying, particularly also with a lot of synergy with the Latin American application, because we're talking about the use of the technology, about synergy, and about MDG-related applications. So I'm very privileged that I have Kondwani Wela with me, and also Dr. Abigail Kazembe, both of Community College of Nursing, who have maximum of 10 minutes between them just to say a little bit more about why we desperately need the connectivity that we're talking about today. I should, just before I lose my minute, say hi to Bjorn, hi to Carmen, John, the many friends of UbuntuNet and Marian that we see in the audience there. We have a nice audience here, about 20 people from different organizations, very happy to be part of this technology today. Let me hand over to Kondwani for his part, and then to Dr. Kazembe. Thank you.
The college librarian for Camus College of Nursing. Camus College of Nursing was the first home for UbuntuNet Alliance. Here we provide high quality nursing education up to master's degree level. And among our plans is to extend the delivery of our programs using e-learning. Now, I have two examples just to demonstrate what Susu was mentioning about. And as a librarian, part of our work is to assist the students, lecturers, and researchers access research information. And this research information is both international and local. Now, to achieve this, we subscribe to a wide range of electronic journals. For our clientele to access these electronic journals, we need excellent connectivity. Now, the challenge that faces most of libraries in Malawi is to make a contribution to Malawi Library and Information Consortium for electronic journals subscription, and at the same time buy affordable and adequate bandwidth. The bandwidth is just too expensive for most institutions in Malawi. That's one example. And another example is much as the international and African electronic journals we subscribe to contain content from Malawi, our strategic plan is to build institutional repositories in which we will have local content. Several colleges, especially in the University of Malawi, have started building institutional repositories. While the repositories will improve the visibility of our researchers and the institution, the research information contained that will be contained in those institutional repositories will be an important resource both for regional researchers and international researchers. Now, for us to provide that content to regional and international researchers, we also need excellent connectivity. Now, these two examples demonstrate that excellent connectivity, which is affordable, can play a bigger role in improving research in Malawi. Therefore, the work that is being done by the Malawi NREN, which is MAREN, is very commendable. And at the same time, there is a high level of expectation in Malawi, because the work that MAREN is doing in Malawi is building on the work that was done by Malawi Library and Information Consortium, which provided VSAT connectivity to academic institutions and researchers in Malawi. Now, if we get excellent connectivity via the fiber that is coming soon to Africa, that will make a very big difference to us librarians by providing research information from excellent international journals and from our repositories in our institutions. So excellent connectivity will make a big difference for our work in Malawi. Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Abigail Kazende. I'm one of the faculty members at Camus College of Nursing. I graduated from the University of Illinois at Chicago in 2006, and as part of my postdoctoral requirements, I had to develop a proposal and seek funding, which I successfully obtained from the National Institute of Health. My research focuses on HIV prevention in young boys and girls, and that research was as a result of my dissertation work. And as you are aware, Malawi is one of the countries which is hit hard by HIV and AIDS, and also reduction of mortality related to HIV and AIDS is one of the key Millennium Development Goals. So, as a way of supporting that goal, that's why I had to pursue this research. And this research represents the next stage of my career development as a lecturer within the University of Malawi. But at the same time, addressing one of Malawi's major research needs. And as a new graduate, I have the support of 6 faculty members from my former university, University of Chicago, who are constantly mentoring me. But I developed the proposal with them while I was in Malawi and they were in the US. We faced serious challenges in terms of communication. And my purpose of sharing you with this information is, to allow us to have the connectivity so that we can improve our contribution towards national research and international research. So on this project, I assume a primary responsibility of a principal investigator. It is a 5-year research project which started last year in August and is expected to come to an end in 2013. The aim of this research is to inform development of the proposed intervention. In other words, when I collected my data for my dissertation, there were recommendations from students about how they can prevent HIV, and at the same time become somebody in future, have a job, have a decent income, and support their families. So the title of my study is Hope for the Future. It is a school-based HIV prevention program which is targeted for youth in the community secondary schools which are disadvantaged schools. And in this intervention, I plan to develop an intervention which is a curriculum. It has 7 sessions, and it will be run through community schools in the afternoon when the students are out of school. The main goal is to support these young people to have a goal in mind, and at the same time preventing HIV prevention. And basically, we want them to have that vision realized. So there are a series of activities that are designed that will assist them to achieve their future goals. And I also use role models. If they want to become a nurse, there are some nurses there who are going to support them to realize their goal. And as I said earlier on, since this is my first postdoctoral research, I need constant consultation with my team members who are based at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And this can only be possible through a sound connectivity. Otherwise, I've just experienced my waste problem. I couldn't forward my report for the first year because there was no connection. And as a requirement to National Health Institute, they only allow electronic reports, but I could not send them any. So I ended up, sending one by FedEx, and we hope with an explanation that they will kindly, take up that. So briefly, this has been my experience, and I feel our university will benefit more if we have a sound connectivity. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you very much for those contributions from Malawi, all three of you. Thanks very much. Now I'll hand back to the studio here, and we'll see if there are any local questions. We've got time for one or two questions, and then we'll move on to the next speaker. So are there any questions? Okay, no further questions. So thanks again to Tusu. Thanks for an excellent presentation. And we wish you the greatest of success in getting the Europeans to link up with Africa. It's my responsibility. Okay. Thanks a bunch. Okay, the last speaker is what's your name? The last speaker is a friend of mine, Bjorn Persson. He's professor of telecommunications and, in fact, head of the telecommunications systems unit at KTH in Stockholm. He's the father of the internet, or grandfather of the internet, uncle of the internet in Africa, and he's coordinating the peace project, which I'm sure he'll mention a few words about during the next presentation, which is on digging and leapfrogging, I think. Right. Thanks.
Sorry. Should I start over? Or? I'm not the father of the African internet, but I'm happy to know him. I will talk about Africa Connect, which is the Africa Connect initiative, which is sort of the European Commission and the African Union Commission initiative, joint initiative within the so-called 8th partnership. I do that because I'm the coordinator of the feasibility study of Africa Connect. So we're trying to paving the way for Africa Connect. And I choose this title to attract as many, as large an audience as possible, and it seems as if it was pretty successful. I'll come back to what this means. Peace is a 10-month feasibility study, and we just had our midterm review yesterday. And if you want to know how that went, talk to Carmen. The goal of Africa Connect is to connect the NRENs in Africa to each other and to the world. And of course, that is to the benefit of Europe. That's why the European Commission puts money into this. It's also, well, you can argue it is the last sub-region, but it's at least one of the very last sub-regions. As you can see from this picture, it's the Chance network links to networks on all other continents, but there is a big hole, not only Africa, but also a part of its neighbors. But we will focus on Africa here. So everything in between what is already connected in the UNED Connect project and South Africa that is already connected also. There are some pending historical moments coming up, and I think it's hard for anyone that is not really in and know the environment to understand how big the pending change is really. I'm sure there are similar experiences from Latin America. The challenge is to go from VSAT and SAT3. I've included that in the VSAT group because the argument around SAT3 is that you get better quality of service, so it has to be more expensive. And what is coming up is actually open access-based submarine cables where the price will come down essentially and move the bottleneck. The bottleneck will not anymore be in intercontinental traffic. It will actually be on the terrestrial domestic networks. The first one coming up in a couple of weeks is CCOM. Unfortunately, I've been trying to understand hard what will be plugged in the first day, and I haven't yet found anything that will be plugged in the first day. But CCOM is very clear that the cable will come up on the 27th of June. Teams is close after. Teams is a cable which goes from Mombasa to the United Arab Emirates, to Jaira in the Persian Gulf. And the reason why that came about, I guess, is because the power game in Africa, as part of the power game in Africa, Kenya decided to do their own thing. And that speeded up things, and we see actually 3 cables coming up now. It's also the EASY, which was the first one to start, the first serious one. There have been previous attempts to build cables on the East Coast, but EASY started in about 2001, 2002 to be planned, and there have been several delays because the initial plan was to make it a copy of the SAT3 model. And it has been a lot of education of politicians and discussions with politicians to make them realize that they were the only ones that could stop that, and that would be to the benefit of their countries. As a result of those discussions, the Kigali Protocol emerged, which forced open access, and not only as an open access, also the free passage to the sea, also for the landlocked countries. TUSI, we used to call that something, the Asian wave, the African Indian Ocean wave. Which should solve the problem of the landlocked countries, although it's not quite the case. It solves it from a political point of view, but there are still the commercial challenges around that. TUSI showed this already. I just would like to clarify that nothing of this exists yet, except the very thin black line here. That's free. The black inside here. And the width of this is done by Steve Song, formerly with IDRC, now with the Shuttleworth Foundation. And the width of the cables reflects their capacity. They are all planned to be deployed in the next few years. So by 2011, 2012, you see that the situation will just be drastically changed. And this is a major change. CCOM, I don't dwell on that since, and EASY, since TUSI already talked about them. And this is also the East African backhaul system, where there are some challenges still, especially on the southern part between Dar es Salaam and Burundi, Rwanda. This is a map which reflects the western side, and I included these just to illustrate that availability of infrastructure will not be the problem. The physical availability will not be a problem. There are problems or challenges rather in the the affordable access to it. So the focus now is on Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Africa certainly is involved in this also as a member of the UbuntuNet Alliance and as a partner to the European Commission in a number of projects. Africa Connect has a budget of 15 million euros. It's a very similar size as the ALICE project. It's 12 million pledged by the European Commission, and as I understand, it's almost done. There are some political ratifications of the decisions left, but it seems to be on track. And the beneficiaries, whoever they turn out to be in the end, are expected to come up with co-funding of 20% of the total sum, 3 million euro. And that is part of what remains to be done in the feasibility study, to actually get to diminish the risk. That will be part of the final selection of beneficiaries besides the procurement and so on. What is the risk involved that the co-funding cannot be there? But there seems to be money around, as Tuse said. Money seems not to be the main problem. There are three components in the project. Connectivity being, at least in the initial planning, the largest one. And then the other two components are capacity building of human resources and application development. And a good model perhaps is to pick the low-hanging fruits and show immediate success, and then go back to the Parliament and ask for more funding to take the rest of Africa. What we have done in the FEAST project is to study the NREN readiness, the academic networking communities. Are they ready do they have something to connect? Do they have the capacity to cooperate with each other and other continents? So that's one thing. Involves a long list of things to tick. And then it's the policy and regulatory environment, which are two very different things. The regulatory environment, from a theoretical point of view, seems fairly okay. I don't know if you agree to it, but that's the impression we have got, that the regulations are not prohibitive. But the enforcement of them leaves often a lot of more to wish. The policy side is more unpredictable. I mean, on the regulatory side, there are rule books that has to be enforced and interpreted and enforced. On the policy side, it's more a matter of what policymakers think, and they not always, as we heard also in the Latin American case, endorse the university community's efforts. And we have a couple of examples of that. They are few, actually, but they are there. Most are either sort of not very involved or even supporting. Only a few are really blocking stakeholders in this. Licenses, permits, a few, I think it's 2 NRENs in the UbuntuNet 3 that have their license. Who is the third? Kenya, Malawi, and South Africa. Yes. Right. South Africa, in spite of the wish of the government, they got the license because the High Court ruled that a certain kind of licensees should have the right also to build their infrastructure. And by a judge, a court decision, 400 new licenses. They went from 2 licenses to 400. The third thing we have been looking into is the availability of affordable infrastructure. And as I said, the infrastructure is there, but it's not affordable. The only market we have seen that is reasonably competitive is Kenya. So there is a long way to go there. We have been asking for dark fiber wavelengths or managed capacity. Dante made a request for information, and we got very few answers. There is a lot of work there to follow up still. There are very few competitive supply chains if you look at the whole thing. We actually have looked, by the courtesy of the Association of African Universities, we have looked into all 53 African countries, and there is a color code here. These are all the 53 countries. The green links exist. The blue ones are the ones that could easily take the most mature. It happens that the most mature that we have found, according to the criteria we set up, are all located on the eastern side where the new cables come in, which could be a lucky coincidence, possibly. There are also reasonably ready communities on the western side, but the eastern side is definitely ahead at the moment. Now we come to the leapfrogging. This is 3, 4, 13-year-olds from Rwanda. They turned up on the first page in a Swedish newspaper. They are actually sitting, they have one laptop per child computer, as you may see, and they are actually sitting outside the terminal of the airport in Kigali, because there is free search. So you and this is an unusual picture in Africa, certainly. Rwanda sort of steps forward as one of the main drivers of information technology, since the president has recognized this as one of the best ways to make up for the fact that they lost almost all their teachers in the genocide. So it's a strong focus on using information and communication technologies to reach the Millennium Development Goals. And for those that don't know these goals, I can recommend the UN home webpage, where it's all about them. And information technology is recognized as a major tool to reach the goals. And the goals were set at the turn of the millennium, and were supposed to be fulfilled in 2015. So we're sort of 6 years left on this. And Rwanda has as one of its goals to quadruple their higher education volume in the remaining years, in these 6 years. And that's the challenge for all universities that can support them, of course, to make that happen, because they can't do that on their own in 6 years, definitely not. So, and Rwanda is very special from many points of view, and I should perhaps not dwell too much on that, but 60% of their population is under 20. So I listed here some applications. FIS has also looked in, courtesy of Deutsche Forschungsnetz, who have contributed Charity Fest, who is in the audience here, to look for applications. We have identified a number of them, and of course they span all sectors. The areas that are sort of recognized as the most important when it comes to to development of society, and the supporting research and education is, of course, education itself, healthcare, and also governance. But certainly environment and agriculture, since most of Africa still is a very consists of very agricultural societies, that's certainly also a focus. So, to summarize the challenges, it's political awareness and regulatory reform is one of the main things. And the awareness that needs to be created is the importance of higher education. It's sad that researchers and the World Bank, as someone mentioned, I think it was you, mentioned that the donor society, not only the World Bank, has for a long time said that the only effects we can see between education and investment in education and poverty alleviation is primary education. So all the investments went into primary education. And that has changed only recently, the view on that. And even SIDA, the Swedish International Development Agency, just last year or 2 years ago started a reorganization saying that we are not anymore supporting the agricultural society, we are supporting the development of the knowledge society. And it's just recent. The next challenge is the availability of affordable infrastructure, and that's where I picked this economical theory by Schumpeter, that you really have to destroy things to build new things. And of course it's the incumbents. So the incumbents need to go down in most cases in order to change from high price, low volume markets to low price, high volume markets to happen. And we see that very evidently in Africa. The largest challenges are where the incumbents are strong still in the political sense. They are not strong economically. They are on the verge of bankruptcy, many of them. But they are supported. They are more important to the country, for the politicians, than the education sector and the communication sector. So that's the second challenge. The last challenge is the capacity building, and as Tuso said, I'm a strong believer from what I see. And it's actually my students that have brought me to Africa, and what I see is that the kind of education needed here is not present almost anywhere. It's very few programs, academic curricula in Africa that produce the kind of competence that you represent here. And that's the challenge. So it's not only training of people, because Africa will have exactly the same problem that at least I know from Sweden, and I know from Europe, and I imagine also happened in other parts of the world, that when this development starts, industry comes and picks people. So universities can't retain their staff. And the only way to meet that, I mean, I've been sitting with representatives from industry saying that you can't take sort of the basic steps, because then there is no more. And then they say, we have to take them before anyone else takes them. So the only way to meet this challenge is by having a volume of education, because that's the role of the universities, to produce all these people that are needed in society. So that's definitely something which I would like to stress on here. Of course, the specific training to build networks. Very specific training is necessary, but it's also the more general capacity building. So what can you do to help this development? Well, you can help in all these areas. You can help raise political awareness wherever you get an opportunity to talk to. There are a lot of communication between politicians all over the world, and you can help making the case. You can also, in various ways, support the transformation of the communication market by having the same arguments towards the industry. And you can, of course, help a lot in education and training in various ways. Serena has launched a NREN twinning discussion, and I know that some of you are already involved in that to team up with a emerging NREN and exchange personnel and help in that way. Scholarships of different kinds, and also call in your academic colleagues to help build up the curricula needed here. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Bjorn. I'd just like to say that everybody had in their information in their bags an information sheet about the FEAST project, the partners in the FEAST project. KTH is the coordinator. Serena and Dante are partners, but the NRENs, and particularly VFN, have put a hell of a lot of effort into finding applications. And so if anybody has any users on their network who have any possibility of collaborating with researchers in the African nations, please go and see Gertie, tell her about the applications, and we will see if we can get those into some of the demonstrators later on. So Gertie Post from DFN, she is the person, post at dfn.de. If you go to the website, the FEAST website, which is www.feast-project.org, you'll find the addresses of all of those involved, including the several European NRENs who have already been in touch with some of the African NRENs for helping them out with a few tips and wrinkles on how to build a network. So, does anybody have any questions for Bjorn? Either in the room or from somewhere else on the planet? We have a local question.
Hi, my name is Maria Jose Lopez. I work for Clara. I'm in charge of public relations. I would like to know what have you done in terms of dissemination, because that's my area, and that's the way in which I could help you also, maybe in Latin America, to find new friends.
Okay. In the FEAST project, that has been the role of Serena, so perhaps I should give the floor on John.
Yes, we've been doing something in the project. Serena, first of all, it's set up the website. There's been a website since day one. We've organized 2 workshops, one in Europe, in Brussels, in March, in collaboration with the Euro-Africa ICT Collaboration Forum. That was one 90-minute session. In May, 7th of May, we organized a whole-day REN track at ISC Africa 2009, and I think that was a really good event, actually. On top of that, we are having a session here today. I'm sure there will be more events at which we can disseminate information. We have information sheets. We have actually we have a news email distribution list. So if anybody wants to be added to that, please get in touch with me. I'll be floating around. Yeah.
I also had the pleasure to present the project for all 22 ambassadors represented in Stockholm on the African Day a couple of weeks ago. And there has been a large interest for this. And of course, just traveling around both KTH and Dante, beating the bush to see what happens, has created a lot of awareness. We have been out talking to all the policy makers, all the regulators, major infrastructure owners in the region.
But if you're offering help, yes, please. We can never have enough. Fine, thanks. We'll be in touch. I'll come and see you afterwards. Do we have any other questions from the floor here? Victor Rice from HEANet. HEANet is one of the contributing partner NRENs, I might say. Daniel Leffer?
You're taking the words out of my mouth. Thanks. Thanks, Bill. But indeed, yeah, HEANet is willing to cooperate in any way possible on both sides. I think it's not. I'm sure it has to be mutual cooperation. I think.
Yeah. I'm sure that Michael Nolan has already talked to you.
Yeah, yeah, he's also from our. Thanks, John.
I really apologize. Getty.
I don't know if the colleagues in Malawi are still online, because I would like to take the opportunity to ask Mr. Weller that I would be very interested to learn a bit more about his e-learning activities there, and would be very nice to get into contact. That is a good chance to say that here, and I think Margaret could provide you with my email address, and it would be nice to learn a bit more about it, if you would be interested.
Hi, Margaret.
So thanks for that, Gertie. I should say that we're always looking out for other NRENs who would like to volunteer just to be a listening ear to some of the developing NRENs in Africa, just initially. And then maybe if Africa Connect really does take off, and I really hope it does, there'll be an opportunity to participate more fully as a partner. But we'll have to wait for Carmen and her friends in DG Info who have been funding this activity. So thanks very much, Carmen. We love it. It's great. You're doing a great job. Thank you. Malawi, there's a message from Carmen coming up.
Hello. Hello, I just wanted to send my greetings to Latin America and to Malawi. Margaret, Carmen here, you can see me. I just want to thank you also for your participation here. I just would like to thank you for your participation in the last session in Kampala that I couldn't attend, but I have all the reports from them. So my greetings to everybody there.
Thank you very much, Carmen. Your ongoing support is very meaningful for us. Thank you.
And if there are no questions, I'd like to close the session by saying thank you to Bjorn. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. I really hope we get somewhere with it. I'd like to say thank you to all the participants around the world. Thank you. Okay. I'd also like to say thanks to Yuan and his team. If you'd like to stand up, Connect team at the back. Thanks very much. It's been really, really great. Okay, and last but not least, thank you very much for all attending. It's been a great session and I've enjoyed it. So thanks very much. Cheers.